All right, guys, welcome back to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. I'm very happy to have NC Scrimgeour here today. How are you today? Well, tonight for you.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock here in Scotland, so I'm very well, thank you, and thanks very much for having me on. This is really exciting.
Oh, of course. I love your bookshelf. Of course, your beautiful books behind you. The
Yeah,
show.
I have very strategically placed
It looks
placed my book.
great.
So if anyone wants a nosy, they can kind of have a look.
There it is. All right. Well, I'm excited that you're here, and well, I can't wait to talk about a few different things. So I always try to start out in this area. Tell us about your trilogy first, and then Sea of Souls.
Yeah. So the trilogy is probably, I guess, maybe what most people would know me for just now. So that's a sci-fi trilogy called the Way Stations trilogy. It's very much kind of sort of large-scale space opera, multi-point of view. I've kind of described it as basically throwing the kitchen sink in. So it's got a bit of everything. It's got like aliens, humans, it's got kind of politics, there's space battles, there's cybernetics, there's AI. It's pretty much like a love letter to the sci-fi that I've kind of enjoyed over the years. And yeah, it's just, I wanted to kind of write something that I would want to read. So my main goal wasn't really to kind of do anything groundbreaking or new. I just wanted to have a lot of fun. And hopefully that's what people get out of it as well.
Yeah.
So the first book is Those Left Behind. That actually came runner-up in last year's self-published science fiction competition.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and then followed it up with Those Once Forgotten and Those Who Resist as well. So that's the trilogy. It's complete. Also got it on audiobooks as well. Well, books one and two, and currently working on the third one, which hopefully should be out in the next month or so. I want to say
That's
no promises,
huge.
but so yeah, had a load of fun writing that. Just yeah, like I said, all the kind of things that I enjoy in sci-fi, I've just kind of thrown in there. So I think there's sort of something for everyone when it comes to sort of those big space operas. I kind of compare it. I mean, Star Wars for me was a huge influence. Kind of just grew up absolutely loving the films and the games and the books. Like so, that's definitely a big element. And then things like Mass Effect, The Expanse, if you like those kind of things, then
I,
you'll probably find something that you like in there.
I'm just about to dip into the expanse. I've been thoroughly talked into it. Sci-fi has become this new thing for me, and the guy that's on the screen right now, Ryan Skeffington, is a wonderful sci-fi author. Wrote Lost Souls. It was really good. But me, I don't have a bunch of experience with sci-fi, and lately it's been one of my absolute favorites. And Ithra, she absolutely loves the audiobooks. She prefers to listen to books, so that's a huge plus for many readers.
Yeah.
So congratulations, and that'll be awesome when book three comes out with the audio.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And you'll love The Expanse. It's just so good. And
I've
just the
heard.
way that it kind of starts small scale and then just, pardon the pun, expands, and just gets bigger and bigger as the kind of series goes on. It's so good.
That's the thing about sci-fi with me is I never thought that I could broaden my thinking so much with just words on a piece of paper. It's very impressive.
Yeah. And what I like about The Expanse as well is that it's not, so I'm not into like the super hard sci-fi. I like kind of, yeah, the more sort of softer space opera kind of side of stuff. The Expanse strikes a really nice balance between having really cool explanations for stuff, but not getting bogged down in it. It's very, very readable. So
I
it's a lot
love
of good
that.
fun. Yeah.
So by hard sci-fi, I feel like the only hard sci-fi I've dipped into is like Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Yeah.
Very much research backed and like animal or bug behavior and evolutionary theories. And is that what you would? Is that what is
Yeah.
considered hard sci-fi?
I need to kind of get around to Children Town. That's one of the ones on my list. But yeah, I kind of find I'm more of a like a sort of I suppose like a character driven reader. So I kind of I like really the stuff that tackles the more I suppose like social side of things. A huge Becky Chambers fan. Her Wayfarer series that almost like the equivalent of sort of cozy fantasy, but for sci-fi. Like
That's
really good.
awesome. So tell us about Sea of Souls because that's That's a way different road for you as a writer, right?
Yeah, so I decided to kind of switch things up and move from sci-fi to fantasy, or actually, it's kind of a move back because Sea of Souls is kind of a complete rewrite of a story. There it is. It's like a complete rewrite of a story that I wrote years ago, and probably the first, I think, full book that I ever finished. Um, so it's kind of that story at its core, but I've kind of rewritten it after doing the Way Stations trilogy. I kind of felt I'd improved a lot as a writer, so I kind of wanted to go back to that first one and sort of tackle it again. So yeah, kind of started off in sci-fi, in fantasy, moved to sci-fi when it came to like the self-publishing, and now kind of pivoting back to fantasy again. So yeah, Sea of Souls is going to be the first in a planned trilogy. So it's I call it kind of a dark Scottish inspired fantasy. So very much kind of drawing on Scottish folklore mythology. Selkies are very heavily involved. I guess for anyone that doesn't know, from Scottish mythology, a selkie is a kind of shape-shifting creature. So it takes the form of a seal when it's in the water, but then it can kind of shed its pelt and appear as a human on land. And in the traditional myth, the story normally follows that a selkie's kind of come ashore and someone's stolen their pelt, meaning that they can't return home to the water. And then eventually, hopefully, they find it again and are able to go back. But I found that whole myth really interesting and really kind of compelling, and the thought of someone takes something from you so important that you can't go back to where you're meant to be. And that just kind of snowballs, and I started thinking, what effect would that have on a person, on their like emotions, on their body and things like that. And then that was the kind of core idea, and it sort of snowballed from there. So yeah, the basic premise of the story, I guess, is that we've got this young human character called Isla, who's spent the last 7 years at sea, and then tragedy calls her back home, and she has to kind of face the stuff that she was maybe running away from. She then meets up with an exiled Selkie, and humans and Selkies don't really get along in this book, to put it lightly. So they have to kind of reluctantly join forces to try and hunt down this pelt that's been stolen from the Selkies, which is very much tied to some bad things, shall we say, that's happening on the islands. So that's
Yeah.
that's sort of long and short of it.
So the Selkie that Nick is or NC Scrimgeour is talking about is it's not something you have to memorize from this interview. She's got the um, definition right before you start reading, right there.
Yeah.
So that's nice because I was not familiar with any Scottish folklore mythology. Very much interested in it, but I found that that's probably culture, like different cultures, mythology, and people being different has been the coolest thing that I've experienced doing interviews. So I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. I love taking a book that I don't know anything about the background, just like this, and finding out about having that knowledge and always in pursuit of that kind of thing.
Yeah. For me, it was really, I think one of the fun things about it is because Selkies are, I guess, such a not so well known sort of fantasy creature or mythological creature, there was just so much scope to expand on that kind of basic myth and just build all this new sort of lore and kind of culture around it. So that was something that I found really enjoyable, because obviously, you've got your sort of staples, your elves and dwarves and orcs and so on. So it was really exciting to take a very underrepresented fantasy creature and really have fun trying to build on that kind of basic building blocks into something bigger.
I can see that definitely being an advantage because, like you said, elves are dud all the time, and orcs and trolls and all that. We're all very familiar with that. So taking something fresh and putting that in your story, that's awesome. I love it. Caden says, which we all know this right now, is love your hardcover. It looks so beautiful. So that was very nice, Caden. Your cover is also beautiful, my friend.
Yeah,
Someone.
so happy with how the hardcover turned out. Shout out to Marcella, who did the inside sort of under the dust jacket, a really beautiful illustration, and also Sarah Ferrari, who did the interior black and white cell kit art. It's just honestly couldn't be happier with how it turned out.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and look at that. That's just the naked hardback. I saw that and it's just gorgeous. I love the nautical theme. It's just it pops. It's kind of got like a classic. I'm into really classic traditional tattoos, and it really has that feel to it. I dig it for sure. And gosh, to have a special edition as a self-published author is something that used to be like never you could just wasn't a thing. And I love that there's people like you and like Broken Binding and all others that do that wonderful service for self-published authors. It's very special because that's got to be one of the biggest highlights in your writing journey so far. How was that? Were you part of the process?
Yeah, I basically. So for the Way Stations trilogy, I'd released it on ebook, obviously, and then the paperback, and was working on the audiobook as well. And when it came to Sea of Souls, especially because I suppose fantasy more than sci-fi, I think maybe lends itself more to, like things like maps and sort of character art and stuff. So yeah, I wanted to, I hadn't done a hardcover before, I wanted to do a hardcover. And then I was thinking, well, if I'm doing a hardcover, I might as well try and make it like a little bit special. It costs more than a paperback, so try and put some stuff in it. So no, I just kind of found the artist that I wanted to work with, and kind of contacted them and managed to pull it all together. So and there's also I put in, there's like a short prequel kind of short story that I'd written to go in my newsletter, and I thought, I'll pop that in there as well, so you're getting some extra goodies as well.
Yes, newsletters are like that marketing thing anymore, and it's so I've been going through comments and seen. I'm so glad that you did a newsletter novella because I found out that I truly loved your writing, and I may not have bought the book initially, or similar stories to that. I think it does wonders.
Yeah, it's really nice because it doesn't even have to be that long either. It's nice. It gives people, like you said, a little taste of the writing. It lets them see, I think I would enjoy reading more of this. So
absolutely. So are you more of you kind of touched on it, but I'm going to ask it for again, but are you a character driven story writer or plot driven?
I would say a mix, probably leaning more towards character relationships. Way Stations is probably, I don't know, I'd say it's more of a plot driven, but then the characters all play a really important part as well. So I've got 5 point of view characters in Way Stations, and some of them kind of start together and then sort of separate. But as you're going through the books, pretty much all 5 characters are in various different parts of the galaxy, all kind of doing their own thing. So it's very plot heavy in terms of like there's lots of stuff going on. I kind of mentioned throwing the kitchen sink in earlier. Like there is a lot of kind of subplots and stuff going on in the story, but I think the heart of it is still the characters and the sort of relationships they have and the dynamics with the different people they meet. I think as a writer, I think that's my favorite thing to explore and sort of write about, is just how characters interact with each other, how they might be with one person versus another person, how they deal with the situations that they're kind of thrust into. So
sure, it's like those little nuances that make that character relatable or authentic, or make you kind of empathize. I absolutely love that too. I would say that that's probably my favorite type of book to read, like the character point of views. And initially that wasn't true because I didn't know to trust the author at first. Sometimes there's those stories where you're like, I just don't really know where this is going. And I've found that if I hold on, it's going to be so worth it in like 10 minutes, So very, very cool. When did you know you wanted to write? Were you younger?
Yeah, honestly, I think I've been writing for as long as I can remember, or even before I was writing. I remember like being on holiday or something, and going to a new place, and just thinking up stories about, something that could be living in those hills or in that cave. Or I always had that kind of imagination that I would just think of things that could be happening. So even
That's
before I
awesome.
started writing, I was always just thinking of stories. And then all throughout school, like if we were doing kind of English or creative writing classes, that was always my favorite thing. And then I went on to study English lit at uni as well. But I always like wrote kind of maybe shorter form short stories, or like I'd start a book but then never really see it through. Wrote some fan fiction back in the day as well, but it wasn't. I think it was 2016 that I like actually sat down. I was like, no, I'm gonna plan something out, and I'm actually going to write a book. So
That's
I've been
amazing.
writing a long time, but it wasn't until more recently that I thought I'm
You were
actually.
practicing.
Yeah, I was practicing
Yeah,
exactly.
that was just getting you ready. Your mind's like, I know what you want to do. I'm just going to get you a little bit prepared. I often talk about this. I didn't read when I was younger, and I wish that I would have. So I'm going to do that for my kids. But I like hearing those stories where that imagination that get you to create these wonderful stories. Oftentimes, the younger you start using that muscle, the creative muscle, the more pronounced it is when you decide to write that novel. So, when you started reading, who were some of those more foundational authors for you, especially the ones that may have had their hands in the way that you write?
Yeah, so again, I've been reading again since quite a young age. So I obviously started in more sort of younger books and sort of worked my way up. But yeah, I remember like as a kid being very much into the Animorphs. Like that was
Yes.
my like favorite thing at the time, and they're very readable. You can just like go through them so quickly, and all these different characters, and each book was like from a different character. So maybe
Mhm.
that's what got me into the multi point of view thing. So
Yeah.
um but no, I always kind of like devoured books. I suppose I was kind of lucky that my my parents, if we weren't having family dinners, they would allow me to just read a book at the table when I was like eating my dinner and stuff. I
Oh,
just
nice.
kind of like devoured books basically. I I say I read. I attempted Lord of the Rings when I was like 11 or 12. I don't know
Well,
how much of it I really understood at the time, but I remember obviously going to see the film the first film when it came out,
oh
and
yeah.
then realizing there was a book and being like, oh, I have to read this. Again, at that age, I don't know how much of it at the time I probably actually kind of took in, but yeah,
It's
always
lots
just
of description.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I haven't read it yet. I'm very excited. That's one of the first books I'm going to read with my son. With the first one being The Hobbit, because I haven't read The Hobbit either. I haven't read Lord of
Oh,
the
it's
Rings.
definitely an easier read.
Oh, it's so that okay. So that's a better introduction book
Yeah,
than Lord of the Rings. Okay,
yeah.
that's great to know. It's funny because I've grabbed that book like 10 times to try to read it to my 4-year-old, which he's not even going to sit long enough to hear 3 sentences. But I'm just excited to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so your writing style, would you say it has been influenced maybe by anybody specifically? Like, I don't know, maybe Tolkien or anybody?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say, because I think as well this my style between way stations is probably a bit different to how I'm writing in Sea of Souls as well. I feel with Sea of Souls and going into fantasy, I kind of let myself maybe be a wee bit more I don't know, prosy, I guess. Like I do probably use more descriptions and more kind of poetic language in the fantasy one, whereas way stations was, I suppose, faster paced and more focused on kind of that keeping that pace up. So I think it is changed probably a little bit between genres, but in terms of fantasy, Robin Hobb,
Ooh,
absolutely like love her books, and just love her prose and her writing style. I just I think it's wonderful.
what
Um
was the what about I've heard that many times. Like, and I have the Assassin's Apprentice. I haven't read it yet though. What is it about her writing that people love so much? What is it that really captures people? Is it like her dark? themes or?
Yeah, I just think she can just cut to like the emotion of a scene or a relationship just so well. And the yeah, again, the dynamics between her characters and the way that, I mean, everyone says it, they suffer. It's not always or often very happy, but just the way she can do that and actually make you kind of feel that suffering alongside those characters is quite special. So
I've heard that quite a few times, and that's kind of why I asked it, because most of the people, one of my good buddies, DB Rook, he's an author. He wrote Callus and Crow. That's his favorite author, and it's like he goes back to the emotion of her prose and just how she's just the absolute best at. Yeah, don't trust um, don't trust her as an author. She's going to kill your character. Or, that situation is going to make you pretty upset, or whatever it is. But anybody that can capture those emotions with words, it's just absolutely incredible.
yeah.
And some are just amazing at it.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a bit of a kind of like false start with her because when I again first read The Assassin's Apprentice, it didn't actually like kind of hook me in straight away. So I think I'd read like the first couple of chapters and I was like, and then I put it down and maybe came back to it a couple of months later and I was like, no, I've heard such good things about it. I'm going to kind of keep going. And I am so glad I did because I can't remember what point it was, but there was a point that I just realized I'd read like 100 pages and
Oh
like
yeah.
something. I'm like, okay, yeah, I am deeply invested in this now.
If you're 100 pages deep and it doesn't feel like it, it's definitely one that's hitting home. I love that. Ithra says, what fan fiction did you write?
A bit of everything. Like yeah, Star Wars, X-Men, Dragon Age. Yeah, quite a bit. Although it's all gone now. It's been wiped from the face of the earth.
She's like, I am sinking that. She's like, I don't have it no more. That's funny. I like that though, because again, that was not another one of those stepping stones.
Yeah, and it's just
go ahead.
It's a bit fun, really.
That's what I was gonna say. I hear a lot of people just do it, with no, goals with it. It's just really, really fun. Hey, what if? Because I didn't know what fiction was for quite a while, and I had heard it, and finally hearing people who wrote about it, I can see the attraction because say you're really into say X-Men. I mean, what better to do than kind of make your own storyline with it?
That's it. Yeah, it's kind of I suppose part of the sort of escapism. Oh, this is an idea I've got about it, and I want to express that in some way. But I think as like a writer as well, or like a new writer, it's also a kind of way of like kind of playing in the sandbox before you kind of get to the real stuff. So the characters already exist, the set in the world already exists. So you've got some of the structure built for you, and then you sort of can play with it a bit, and then obviously when you're writing your own stuff you build all that by yourself. So it's a nice maybe introduction for some people to write in without needing to come up with for everything from scratch. So.
I like that. Me personally, I'm always thinking about what can I do to get myself prepared, because I would love to publish a novel one day, and it's intimidating, and I'm looking for those practicing, because again, when I was in school, I never cared about English. I was that kid that never read the books, and if you would have said that I was gonna talk about books on YouTube when I was a little bit older, I would have definitely not believed you. But I'm so glad that I am. So I find myself wanting those, I don't know, practicing, maybe like a writing group where we bounce ideas off of each other. I think that could be fun and definitely helpful. So yeah, thank you for mentioning how helpful the fan fiction was for you, because that's one I hadn't really put much thought into. So I might, just for fun, do something like that for practice.
Especially if there's like something where it's a TV show or a book or a game or something that you really enjoy. It can just it doesn't have to be for any purpose or to show anyone. It's just like I said, kind of just a bit of fun. So
yeah. So okay, so going through this process called self-publishing, what was it that maybe surprised you the most, or was maybe the hardest part of, you've written this book now you're trying to publish? What of that publishing process was the hardest for you, or maybe most you didn't really see coming?
Yeah. So yeah, my journey, I suppose, kind of started off pursuing traditional publishing. So when I wrote my first book, which was the early iteration of Sea of Souls, back in 2016, I thought, yeah, I'll try and kind of send it around. I ended up getting an agent very quickly, almost like only 6 months kind of into querying,
Oh
and I
wow.
kind of thought, oh, this is great, and I suppose I went in with maybe a bit of naivety, like, oh no, once you've got an agent, that's you on the road, and then you're going to get published, and that's going to be it. And unfortunately for me, that's not how it worked out. That book didn't sell, and then the next one didn't sell, and then Those Left Behind was the kind of final one that we tried as kind of as an agent to an author to try and sort of sell to publishers. So, and once that didn't happen, I think that was probably around. Well, it must have been actually during the pandemic when COVID hit, and I just started thinking to myself, it was a kind of mix of loads of people that I knew, sort of either quitting their jobs, or they weren't at their jobs, so they were doing their own kind of passion projects and stuff like that. And it just got me sort of thinking, well, why don't I do that? I've given this a shot. It's not really worked out, but I believe in this story. I think that there might be people out there that want to read it. So instead of sort of waiting for it to happen to me, I thought I'll just go out and try and make it happen for myself. So
I
I did
love that.
a lot of research into self-publishing, and actually, so before I released the Way Stations, I've got a kind of prequel to that series called The Exodus Betrayal. I always kind of talk it down, like I don't think it's my best, like my best work or anything, but I kind of wanted to put that out there first. I'm like, you know what, I'll make the mistakes with this book, and then at least I'll have figured out a bit what I'm doing before I then kind of publish Way Stations, because I kind of knew that was probably going to be the one that was be more popular, the one that people would enjoy more. But I didn't really know at that time what I was doing with self-publishing, and I had this other book written. So I was like, I'll pop that out first. I'll kind of learn what I'm doing, and
Yeah.
then I'll hopefully do well. And it worked out. So
That's amazing. And I think that's the scariest part for me. I'm just speaking personally. It's like knowing that the first time that I do this, it's going to be the worst time, but doing that still, knowing that the next time is going to
yeah,
be better, but that's everything. It's really is like riding a bike or coloring, drawing, all that. So there's a
yeah,
starting place, and everyone's got that personal story about the stepping stones that they use to get there. So thanks for sharing that. That's
yeah,
awesome. And I like the tenacity because I feel like if I'm speaking for me personally, you write your heart's in this, and I've heard this so many times from that definitely traditionally published authors. Like it doesn't, it could be the best written book in the whole world, and if it's not like what a publisher's looking for or what's hot right now, it's a big game of whoever, if the right person gets that book in their hand at the right moment, which makes it hard as an author because you don't know what to really aim for.
yeah.
There's something, not something to grab on, or like this definite road to I don't know, success in what you want to do. It's all very subjective and based on luck, I guess.
Yeah,
Is that how you would
absolutely.
say it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can't help but question yourself, or know for sure. It's like, have I written a good book and it's just been unlucky, or is my book not that good? Does it not kind of measure up to what else is out there? But no, I think kind of luck being in. I mean, obviously you have to have a good book or have a decent book in the
Sure.
first place. But you could write an amazing book and never be picked up by a traditional publisher. I think it's so competitive, and I think the way the kind of markets go, and sort of trends that come along, there'll be stuff that's sort of focused on at a certain time, and you might not be right in that. Um, but yeah, so I think, yeah, a whole lot of luck involved, which is also the nice thing about self-publishing, is you don't have control over how many people like or buy your book, but you've got control over like your timelines, what you want to do, how you want to try and promote it, where you want to put it as
Sure.
in terms of like genre or whatever. So
So Do you use, so going through the publishing process, did you use an editor? Do you edit yourself?
Yeah, so I do a lot of editing myself, like several passes. I have a writing group on Discord that has been absolute godsend. We all critique each other's work and kind of share manuscripts and get a lot of kind of feedback that way. So
That's
that's
valuable.
been incredibly helpful. And then after I've done all the kind of edits and I've got it to as far as I think I can take it, I then send it for a proofreader before I publish, because no matter how many times you read it and how meticulous you think you've been, there will never be a kind of perfect manuscript. You'll always have missed something. So
It's good to have that self-awareness. It's not just self-awareness, it's human awareness. We all, none of us are perfect. So having that kind of unbiased eye, or that critical eye, kind of go through and tidy it up, or point things out. I think that's really cool. And it's also a skill to learn how to take criticism.
yeah.
So having a Discord group where you all have that relationship with one another, that's pretty valuable.
It's brilliant, yeah, and you kind of build that trust with people as well. So you can be quite honest about stuff, and no one's going to be upset or take offense to it, because you know that everyone is just there to help you try and put the best book out that you possibly can. So actually, sometimes someone coming in and being like, "Hey, this didn't work for me at all. I really didn't like how that happened," really makes you just reflect on what you've written. And it's not to say you need to agree with every single bit of feedback you get, because sometimes you won't. But for me personally, I've just found it just helps to be really reflective of your own writing when you've got different kinds of writers looking at your stuff, because we all write quite different stuff. And there's some write kind of sci-fi and fantasy. There's some more like romantasy authors. So it's quite a varied mix. So I
That's
think you're
awesome.
getting
You
a
have
wide range.
yeah, you have like a diverse eye. You get a little bit from everybody's experience with different genres. I think that could be very, very helpful. Ithra said, "So happy that you found your groove in publishing." I must
Thank
have
you.
been that moment where you're like, I knew there was a reason I was doing this. And man, special edition, holding that in your hand, I'm sure that was one of those moments. That's wonderful. So, are you reading anything currently?
Yeah, I am currently reading Shauna Lawless's second book. So it's The Words of Kings and Prophets. So she released the Children of Gods and Fighting Men was the first one. So I'm reading the second one now. So that's really good. It's like Irish history, mythology sort of story. So I've found that really, really fun to read as well.
I didn't know that it was an Irish folklore mythology. That's cool. I've definitely heard of the books.
Yeah.
Um, Beautiful covers they have.
Yeah, yeah. I got the
So,
first one on Kindle, and then Broken Binding were doing like a Black Friday sale for like the two hardcovers, and I was like, okay, it doesn't matter. I got the first one on Kindle. I'm getting this double set because they look amazing.
oh, they do wonderful work. I love Broken Binding. I've been signed up for their like subscription list for a while now. I'm excited for when it finally hits, because man, every time I see these new editions going out every other, however often they send them out, they're so beautiful, and it's affordable.
Yeah,
It's not like these $300 or $400 special, because there's many of those. So what they've done as a company for especially self-published authors is wonderful.
yeah, yeah. It's always nice when you get kind of companies like that are just really, really supportive.
Yes, absolutely. Community people.
Yeah.
So, what are you working on right now, and what's coming up for you? Anything like conventions or whatever it is?
So in terms of writing, working on the second Sea of Souls book, that has been a bit slower than I would like. I'm kind of plugging away at it. I think when I started self-publishing, I always had sort of like a book in the bag, because I had been with my agent before and I'd written a few books. When I started releasing them, by the time I'd released one, the next one was almost finished, and then I could work on the next one. So I always had like one ready to go. And this is probably the first time since I've started self-publishing that I've released one, but I've still to write the next one. So I think that's slowed me down a little bit, but I'm hopeful to get it out at some point this year. So let's fingers
Very
crossed.
exciting.
I will give myself that goal and I will try and hold myself to it.
Yes.
Yeah, but
And
no,
then
that's really fun. And yeah, in terms of yeah, I've not actually kind of done any really live events or conventions or anything. In fact, I've been on a couple of panels this week at TBR Con, which has been really fun.
yeah.
And the first time I've done anything like that either. So kind of, because normally I'm like a bit sort of, I don't know, a bit nervous and shy about like
Oh,
speaking in
that's
public.
very normal. And me
So,
too. Everybody starts that
yeah,
way.
really enjoyed it. It's been great, and just getting to speak with other writers and kind of just chat about books and the various kind of different aspects has been really fun.
What top? Yes, Tim McKay says TBR Con has been such a blast. Yes, it is fun. The topics though are what really shines. What was your topics that you were talking about?
So first one I did was about writing non-human characters, which was really fun. Got to talk about the kind of aliens from the Way Stations trilogy, and then talk a bit about the Selkies from Sea of Souls. So that was great. And then last night I was in the SPSFC2 finalists panel. So yeah, all the finalists from last year's self-published science fiction competition, which was lovely. I was just like almost like a conversation with friends, sort of just chatting about our experiences and what we got out of it and each other's books. So that was lovely.
It's very helpful, I see, for like the viewers, of course. You know, I tune in to learn things or that I'm a fan of who's up there speaking, but I also feel you as an author and hearing all of this big concentration of experience, that must be very helpful and useful to you authors as well. It's like, okay, I can relate to that. Or, we always think we're the only one to go through something. So to hear that somebody else had issues in a certain area that I may have an issue, you can relate on those.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really nice to some of the things that you think you might be struggling with, like it's everyone else is in the same boat.
Yeah.
Even in terms of, especially as a self-published author, when you're starting out, the chances are that you're kind of not making back the sort of money that you're investing into your books, and how long it takes to then try and break even and then start making, hopefully one day start kind of making a profit on it. So just those kind of conversations and realizing that you're in the sort of same boat is really good.
Absolutely. So kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about was NC Scrimgeour Nick, she sent me this wonderful special edition, but there was an extra one that was sent. So what I'm starting this month, and then I'm going to be doing for every month, and for every month I'll do one book, is I'm going to buy and support an indie author and do a giveaway. And they're all going to be, at least for now, the same way. What I'm going to do after we're done talking is create a YouTube short. And what the rules are, if you like, share, and you're subscribed, come back and type done. I'll throw all the names that have the word done next to them into a random generator, and I'll record that process and everything, and that will be the winner. So you guys that are here live and everything get to hear that first. You get I'll show you another look at it. It's beautiful. That's the naked hardcover, guys. And there's the map's wonderful. I'm not going to. I always cringe when people crack books all the way open. So when you win it, you'll be able to check that map out. It's awesome. Again, just look out for my next YouTube short. I'll post it on Twitter and all that fun stuff. And I'll also reiterate those rules there. So I'm really excited to do that. And whoever gets it, man, it's just wonderful. So I just wanted to thank you, NC Scrimgeour, for being here. Sorry, the brain fart. Thank you so much for letting me borrow you for a little bit. I know it's not early there, so it's like going on 9 o'clock there, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, just coming up for 9.
Awesome. Well, yes, thank you so much for letting me borrow you and your experience. Thank you.
It's been lovely to be here and chat. It's been really good fun.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody that was here live, thank you as well. I'm going to go grab my 4-year-old off the bus, and we will see you, let's see, on the 27th with Michael R. Miller. So we'll be talking dragons and dragon writing and all that fun stuff. So we'll see you at 3 o'clock on the 27th. And until then, you guys, Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.